Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Conspiracy Chronicles on this Sunday, the 8th of April, 2012. Joe Joseph here, along with my good buddy Tim Watts, conspiracy theorist extraordinaire.
Yeah,
yes.
Doing everything.
Everything's a theory, Tim. Why?
Yeah.
Folks, get your tinfoil hats on tonight. It's going to be a good one. Tonight, we conquer the CFR. That's right, Council on Foreign Relations. You know, Tim, this is a very important step in the progression of what we've been talking about lately with these secret societies and organizations. You know, we've talked about the Federal Reserve and how they control things.
Yeah.
And it's important that people understand that just around the time the Federal Reserve comes into power, the CFR comes into power not soon after that.
Yep. Yeah, and you know it's been controlling American foreign policy ever since, and this country for all intents and purposes. The CFR sounds like a very innocuous sounding name. The Council on Foreign Relations. But that's the way it's good, huh?
Well, many think tanks actually sound innocent, though.
Yeah, I know. They always. That's the point I'm getting to. They always make them sound like they're very very fluffy and touchy and human, feeling and, just Council on Foreign Relations. Yeah, we're doing good stuff for foreign relations. Well, what they're trying to do is they're trying to do away with the sovereignty, the national sovereignty of this country. They want to see a one world government. They don't want to see the United States anymore. They don't want to see England. They don't want to see Egypt. They don't want to see nationalities. They want to see one world, and it's been a vision that they've been working on since the turn of the century now. And, we've touched on some of that already, Joe, with a little bit, like you said, we went through with the Federal Reserve and what about, how they, that's the cabal that took over this country. But then the same people that were part of the Federal Reserve cabal, they're also part of the CFR, Joe.
Why, yes. Yes, they are.
Paul Warburg, yeah.
I mean,
Edward Mandel House. I mean, again, there's some really key players at a very, very key moment in American history, and just how influential these people were. Not in our, our history books, not in, your high school and college history books. Somewhat in college, but they're not giving you the slant that you get when you do a little research on these people and find out,
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. And in 1921, the CFR comes into being, and the person that is credited with creating the CFR, Edward Mandel House, he actually he's famous for this quote, and we've read it before when talking. I think it was what were we talking about when we brought up House, the Federal Reserve, because he was tied into the Federal Reserve as well.
Yeah.
And I want to read this quote to you again, folks, because it's so important to understand. Now, this is right from the mouth of people within the CFR, and this happens to come from the mouth of the person that created the CFR. And again, this is Edward Mandel House. This was him writing to Woodrow Wilson. He says, very soon, every American will be required to register their biological property in a national system designed to keep track of the people and that will operate under the ancient system of pledging. By such methodology, we can compel people to submit to our agenda, which will affect our security as a chargeback for our fiat paper currency. Every American will be forced to register or suffer not being able to work and earn a living. They will be our chattel, and we will hold their security interest over them forever by operation of the law merchant under the scheme of secured transactions. Americans, by unknowingly or unwittingly delivering the bills of lading to us, will be rendered bankrupt and insolvent, forever to remain economic slaves through taxation secured by their pledges. They will be stripped of their rights and given a commercial value designed to make us a profit, and they will be none the wiser. For not one man in a million could ever figure out our plans, and if by accident one or two would figure it out, we have in our arsenal plausible deniability. After all, this is the only logical way to fund government, by floating liens and debt to the registrants in the form of benefits and privileges. They will inevitably reap to us huge profits beyond our wildest expectations and leave every American a contributor or to this fraud which we call social insurance. Without realizing it, every American will insure us for any loss we may incur, and in this manner, every American will unknowingly be our servant, however begrudgingly. The people will become helpless and without any hope for their redemption, and we will employ the high office of the president of our dummy corporation to foment this plot against America. And that was Edward Mandell House. This, my friends, comes after the Federal Reserve is put into power. And we all know how Wilson felt after that. So you can imagine how he felt when he found out that House kind of put together a cabal of his cronies in order to handle foreign policy and how America acts with other countries. It's crazy, isn't it, Tim?
House, again, was a very key figure back then at that time. I mean, he was a person of tremendous impact. I'm trying to think of somebody today that he would be like, like maybe a Cheney or somebody. I mean, he had such extraordinary influence on the administration. But he's also, remember, the author of a book called Philip Drew Administrator. And a lot of what's in that book is pretty much the guideline for what they used for the reshaping of America. I mean, it's certainly one of the foundations. I mean, if you take a look at it and you see what's in Philip Drew Administrator, it's very scary. I mean, it's stuff about the first after World War II when they tried to have the League of Nations, stuff like that is all kind of comes out of his book, Philip Drew Administrator. An awful lot of stuff is based out of that book. So he was kind of like a cult icon at the time among these far right fascist wealthy figures that were part of the coup on America against FDR. It's the same people, Joe.
Right, and when he talks about social insurance and things like that and pledging, a lot of that has to do with Social Security. Having a Social Security number. If you notice, you can't work without a Social Security number unless you do it under the table. It's interesting how we have the luxury of witnessing these events as they've occurred through history. Folks, don't go away. We'll be right back. More about the CFR when Conspiracy Chronicles continues on the Orion Talk Radio.
I'm delighted to be here in these new headquarters. I have been often to, the mothership in New York City, but it's good to have an outpost of the council right here down the street from the State Department. We get a lot of advice from the council, so this will mean I won't have as far to go to be told what we should be doing and how we should think about the future.
Right from the horse's mouth again, or I should say, a horse is really a stretch because that would be a compliment to Hillary Clinton. Horse's ass, Hillary Clinton, I should say, because there you have it. Because I don't have to go far to get their advice or have them tell me what to do. Yeah, because that's what they do. Therein lies the problem, folks, is you have a think tank that dictates the policy of this country. Yeah. Folks, because this is such an important issue, I've brought a subject matter expert in on this, and that is my good friend John King, also a Freedomlink veteran. Uncle John, happy Easter, buddy.
Happy Easter to you too, my friends. Hello, Tim.
Hey, John.
Yeah, so we're talking CFR, and Hillary was just on there, John. I mean, in the time that, we've spent working together on this, it's funny how we've seen this policy and this puppeteerism kind of go kick into high gear, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And it's to the point now where they don't care. They're blatant with it. When Hillary Clinton can come out in a press conference and publicly say that she doesn't have as far to go to get her instructions, they don't care anymore. I mean, it's right there in your face. They spell it out for you. Our government, the government that we were told that we have when we were in elementary school and I pledge allegiance to the flag crap, doesn't exist anymore. It's all a figment of your imagination.
That's right. It certainly is. And Tim, you know, as we said before the break, Edward Mandell House, he was one of the key figures, not only in the establishment of the Federal Reserve, but, you know, really spearheaded the CFR into being. But this is not this is like a stepping stone, if you will. Like he lays the foundation for this. But where does it go from there, Timmy?
Well, you know, it's real interesting with the CFR because they've got their hands in a lot of stuff. I had originally thought that, you know, Bilderbergs were probably on top of, and maybe they are now at this point. You know, I'm not really sure of the, you know, or does anybody really know what the true hierarchy is? You know, if it's CFR, Trilateral Commission, Bilderberg group. But so far as I've seen, you know, CFR came around in 1921, and supposedly, you know, they are given credit for, you know, bringing about the Trilateral Commission. You know, that came about in 1973 from David Rockefeller. Well, you know, exactly. I'm sorry, no, not it's I mixed that up. It's the Bilderberg group.
Right, Bilderberg brought about the Trilateral.
Well,
right.
Bilderberg Group was brought about by a guy that used to be the chairman, the former chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations. So you got a guy that was the former CFR chairman, and he's the one that founds the Bilderberg Group. And this is a guy named John J. McCloy. He was also chairman, Joey, of the Chase Manhattan Bank. Now, who do we know that owns the Chase Manhattan Bank? Let's put on our thinking caps, kids. And who owns the Chase Manhattan Bank?
Schmiegel.
Yeah.
Schmiegel Rockefeller.
Yeah. And then now that ties back to, again, and then the Trilateral Commission was founded in 1973, and that was by David Rockefeller. So there's that tie-in all the way around because the Rockefellers were also money into the CFR. So whether it's the CFR, the Trilateral Commission, or the Bilderbergers, the Rockefellers, they got money there, and they got big.
Let me give people a little bit of the history on the CFR. Yes. Okay, the earliest origin of the council stemmed from a working fellowship of about 150 scholars called, dun dun dun, the Inquiry, tasked to brief Woodrow Wilson about options for the post-war world when Germany was defeated. Through 1917 and 1918, this academic band of brothers, including Wilson's closest advisor and longtime friend, Colonel Edward Mandell House, as well as Walter Lippmann, gathered at a 155th Street and Broadway at the Harold Pratt House in New York City to assemble the strategy for the post-war world. The team produced more than 2,000 documents dealing and analyzing the political, economic, and social facts globally that would help Wilson in the peace talks. Their reports formed the basis of the 14 points, which outlined Wilson's strategy for peace after war's end, and, guys, the League of Nations. You know, I believe that the CFR was. Yeah, well, the CFR was involved. They were intimately involved in the creation and crafting of that idea. So, John, you know, here you have the seat. This is the powers that be first attempt, really, in the 20th century of going after that one world government. Ain't that right, Johnny boy?
Yes, it is, and I'm right in the middle of a documentary from YouTube.
What is the show that is the show that boring, John? That you have to watch a documentary during the show? Jerk. You're such a jerk.
I'm not watching it now. I'm not watching it as we speak.
You know, man.
But
that's
when the people have the time, the 2-hour video is called Iron Mountain: Blueprint for Tyranny. It was a study done by the Kennedy administration on what to do or how to create peace in a post-war atmosphere. And one of the ways to do that, to make that happen, is they have to cede nations' sovereignty. They also have to give them an enemy to fight while these things are being implemented, and they have to slowly take away our gun rights, because if we have guns, we are then able to protect our national sovereignty. If they do away with the guns, then we're better able to cede our sovereignty to a higher power. In walks the UN, the world government. That's what's going on right now. And if you watch the video.
Yes, if you watch the video, and
as Charlton Heston said again, out of my cold dead hands. They want them for our guns. I'm sorry, folks, but out of cold dead hands.
Well, that's right. And isn't it interesting that in these present times, the only armed country left in the world, where the citizens have the right to bear arms is the United States. We're the last one. And to be honest with you, it's amazing. And to be honest with you, if we don't pay attention and actually do something about the present situation, our rights are going to be, let's just say, diminished even further. And it's only because we allow it to happen, folks. We have to give them away. And boy, oh boy, have generations before us given away the store. Sit tight and stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back. This is Conspiracy Chronicles on the Orion Talk.
Good to be back at the Council on Foreign Relations. As Pete mentioned, I've been a member for a long time and was actually a director for some period of time. I never mentioned that when I was campaigning for re-election back home in Wyoming.
What a weasel. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Conspiracy Chronicles Sunday night with Joe Joseph and Tim Watson. That's a quote from Mr. Dick. Big Dick Cheney.
Little Dick Cheney. Don't give him that much credit.
Little Dick Cheney. But the fact that he said he admitted that he hid the fact from folks while he was campaigning for Congress that he was the director and the former head of the CFR. What a chicken shit. He admits it.
Exactly. And I mean, these people, again, I want to get back into the history a little bit. And we were talking about Wilson and his 14 points and the League of Nations. And, Tim, you said it best. It came right out of Edward House's book.
Yeah.
He spells it all out.
It came right out of the book, Philip Drew, Administrator. And if you want to get a really good read on history and how things came up to where they are today, that's a book that I would suggest to folks. It's Edward Mandell House. Again, the book is called Philip Drew, Administrator. And it was almost like it was a blueprint for everything from that point up until now. Everything from the entire 14 points in the League of Nations and all of that.
And again, just so you know, hey, Tim, not to interrupt you, but just so you know, folks, that book is available on the internet. If you Google search Philip Drew Administrator in an ebook form, you can find it for free. And that's a very interesting thing because everybody can have access to it. So don't feel like, oh man, it's free on the internet. So all you have to do is search it out. Go ahead, Tim.
I know you can find it on Amazon, but you can also find a free one, so that's cool too. Yeah, and again, the point I was just going to say was this, the incredible power that this one person had at this point in history. And Mandell House was one of these people, Edward Mandell House, one of these people that, whether he was a conduit between the powers that be, whatever, he had a heck of a lot of influence and authority and certainly helped shape the way this country is formed, since the 1920s. And again, this whole cabal comes into play all at the same time, Joe and John. We get the Federal Reserve cabal that comes into play. And then, just a few years later in 1921, you've got the CFR. And from there, it's Katie bar the door. I mean, because as we talked about, that heads right into Bilderberg Group and Trilateral Commission. And the entire scope and goal of these people is for a one world order. And that's it. It's that simple. It's a one world order. And a lot of people, they can't wrap their head around that because they think that's just too big a deal. But no, we've been working. That's where we've been going. If you haven't been paying attention, man, you've really been out to lunch. But that's where we're going.
And history shows that over time. I mean, this happens all the time. This is nothing new to history. When people try to or you have conquering nations or people with, whether it be a monarch or a dictator, but we've had it happen all throughout history. So this is nothing new to the human race. And so the council was formed in 1922 as a non-commercial, non-political organization supporting American foreign relations. From its inception, the council was bipartisan, welcoming members of both the Democratic and Republican parties. It also welcomed Jews and African Americans, although women were initially barred from membership. Its proceedings were almost universally private and confidential. A critical study found that of 502 government officials surveyed from 1945 to 1972, more than half were members of the council. So they have a huge influence on our foreign policy and the runnings of our government.
Now, think about that, Joe. That's just 1945 to 1972. So they said they surveyed 502 government officials, and they found out that half. So you got like 251, whatever, government officials were part of the CFR. Hell, I would venture to say that, they've got far more than that today, in every branch of government.
Well, today it has about 5,000 members, including 5-year term members between the ages of 30 and 41, which over its history have included senior serving politicians, more than a dozen secretaries of state, former national security officers, bankers, lawyers, professors, former CIA members, and senior media figures.
Mm-hmm.
And, to say that this isn't one of the most influential organizations, just look at the list of media figures.
Yeah.
Isn't that right, Tim?
We've gone through this before, and again, we're quite happy to do it again. All too willing to do the public service. But when you look and you see the number of media members, United States media members that are part of the Council on Foreign Relations, it's staggering. It's just staggering. And again, this is just a cursory list. But you've got anchors like Brian Williams from NBC. You've got Katie Couric, Diane Sawyer from ABC, MSNBC, Michael Brzezinski. You've got Dan Rather and Tom Brokaw, formerly from CBS and NBC. You've also got Bob Schieffer from CBS and 60 Minutes, Barbara Walters from ABC, Judy Woodruff from CNN, Paula Zahn, CNN, Leslie Stahl, CBS 60 Minutes. Is the list getting long enough, George? Joe, because the next name on the list is George Stephanopoulos from ABC. Right. Then you've got Jim Lehrer from PBS, David Gergen from CNN, Fareed Zakaria from CNN, Terry Moran from ABC, Charlie Rose from PBS. I mean, it just goes on. Rupert Murdoch, Bernard Kelb, CNN, Martin Kondrak, the McLaughlin Group, Gary Utley, NBC, CNN, Monica Utley, and that's just the people that are in the media, the TV side, and a little bit of radio in there, because then there's equally long list. list, of just print journalists, Joe.
Right, absolutely.
Right, absolutely.
And, you know, to say that this isn't one of the most influential organizations, just look at the list of media figures. You know,
Is John King or Joe Joseph listed on there anywhere?
Yes, I think I saw John King right down at the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, John, it's funny because they not only control the policy, but they control the propaganda stream as well.
Yes, they do. And if Hillary Clinton's up to something, or one of the other high-ranking officials or members, you can bet that it's not going to be broadcast over the mainstream media.
That's right. Hey, I wonder how many, Timmy, broadcasters of Russia Today are members of the CFR?
Yeah. Question: how many people from like press TV, in Iran? So, as Joe used to laugh about, and it's the sad truth. We get more, news now outside the country than we do inside the country, and that's a sad, pathetic fact, but it is true. This thing here alone is one thing that most people have no clue about in this country. They have no idea, about what the CFR is, let alone what it does or who's involved in it. And when you've got all these admitted media people that are part of it, it's easy to see, how a message can be transmitted in, in unison. Where they could sell weapons of mass destruction. They could sell, a false Iraq 9/11 war tie, which they did. I mean, so many things that you can do when you've got the media, and that's how it's all done, folks. And people think, well, gee, there's nothing going on. We watch the news and everything. Well, when you realize that they're part of the CFR, and the CFR, they're the ones that are steering policy. They're the ones that are steering everything in this world. Do you really think you're going to get, an adversarial view from one of these people, when they're part of the CFR? Not going to happen. They're there to be nothing more than, cheerleaders, deliver the story and get you to bite hook, line, and sinker. And that's pretty much it.
No, you're absolutely right. So in 1962, that was a major year because what happened was the group began a program to bring in military officers to study alongside its scholars. So then you started to get the military in there too, folks.
Yeah.
And it gets even worse than that. Stay tuned. Last segment of hour number 1 coming up. So here we are. Last segment of hour number 1. And the CFR is the topic for this evening. Folks, don't forget the email address to the Freedom Link Radio is the Freedomlink at CenturyLink.net. That's the Freedomlink at CenturyLink.net. Joe Joseph, Tim Watson, John King, breaking it down, CFR style. So, Timmy, where do we go next on our journey? Now that we know that they control foreign policy, they control the propaganda stream, and now they've got their tentacles firmly entrenched in the military.
It's very scary, how they've gone through every walk of life, literally. And it goes so far as, we just talked about the media, but not just these journalists, for the obvious reasons, because they want the cover story, they want the disinformation, they want the propaganda. But they've also, from the other side of the media, they've got people like Warren Beatty and Angelina Jolie, and who's another one?
Isn't that interesting?
A few of them that have just surfaced recently. What's his name? Pretty boy, Clooney, George Clooney.
Oh, George
Clooney. And both Clooney and Angelina Jolie have suddenly been involved in the last month in stuff that, that serves the CFR interest. Clooney is trying to sell the fact, we should be in the Sudan, the United States needs to be there. Bad things going on. I'm George Clooney. I'm here in the Sudan. And then, the other one is Angelina Jolie trying to say that, war is a humanitarian effort.
Yeah, I know. What a freaking...
That shit up. It's like, are you serious?
Buy this stuff.
Kidding me?
They eat it up, Tim. They eat it up. I just can't believe it. I mean, now, folks, I know you guys listening to the show, you don't buy it, and that's fine. But I'm saying the majority of Americans in this country, they eat it up. And especially if it comes from somebody like Angelina Jolie or George Clooney. You know, for some reason, if you get lucky enough to make a break and you become a Hollywood star, all of a sudden everything you say is gospel. Hey, what? And they're the last people we should be listening to, Tim.
Yeah, and again, it's kind of like the CIA. They're the perfect people. They suck in there, you know. They're those charming, you know, extra charismatic, you know, certainly easy on the eyes. And, again, just the perfect people that they would want to recruit, you know. And, again, being part of the media. You know, so I now look at films that they're a part of with a different eye. I mean, you should. You have to. I mean, if these people are a part of a group that has an agenda for the world, well, you know, maybe there's something behind some of the productions they're involved in as well.
Right. Hey, John, remember the Lone Gunman pilot episode that aired on Fox 6 months before 9/11? Or the movie Knowing that almost identically depicted the same type of disaster as we experienced with the Gulf oil catastrophe. And both of those movies occurred before the actual event. Isn't that interesting?
It's all pre-programming, Joe. It's all pre-programming.
You know
they
what
want to know what the reaction is. They want to know what the reaction is before they actually do it. To the dumbed down American people, they don't realize it, but they're being programmed.
Now here's something, you know, because this freaks me out. Because you can look back and see kind of like how or what type of movie it would be, like if it was. And a couple movies come to mind. Now, I never thought 2012 would ever like kind of pan out the way that that's showing. Not in the sense that they're showing it. Do I believe something celestial is going to happen? Yeah, but I don't think it's going to end up being as devastating as that. But that's nonetheless, you know. But the one that really concerns me is that movie, The Road. I mean, have you guys seen that?
No, do tell.
Oh my
Yes,
gosh.
I have.
That's a very chilling movie. Tim, if you get the opportunity, and folks, just watch The Road. That movie will make the hair stand up on your neck. And basically, you don't know what happens in this movie as far as what it is, what event that causes life on Earth, everything on Earth to just die. And the only thing that's left are these humans that they're pretty much nomadic or they're gangs and everybody's cannibals and they're just scurrying around for the last bits of food that there is. But everything is just dead. And it's amazing. It's almost like a post-apocalyptic world.
Well,
and it's those movies like that. Oh, it's a heavy hitter. But it just makes the first thing that I thought when I saw that was, wow, predictive pre-programming. Is this what we're in for? You know, these are the people, these CFR people. These are the people that control the content of these movies.
And you bring up point, Joe, the predictive programming, because by having people in the industry, it's not just the film stars. They've actually got film producers and directors that are in the CFR too.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Yep, Joe. So, Joe, you just hit a good one right there. They can come up with that kind of stuff, that predictive programming, and right out of the studio, right at you.
So, the New World Order, John, you know, they've been around for a long time, but they really are a very small minority of people that just control everything. And it seems like the seat of power right now is the United States.
They topple that, and it's an open door.
Yeah, no, you're right. And we're close to being toppled. I mean, look at us.
Yeah, because the American people, they're desperate. They don't know what to do, and they need a leader, and there's not one out there that's strong enough to give them what they're looking for. but they're not quite desperate to take matters into their own hands. They're looking for somebody else to do it. Well, guess what? You are that someone else.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's just great. I just love being someone else. You know?
Well, somebody's got to do it.
I know. Thank you, John. That's right, John King, everybody. He's the next someone else. I'm his comic relief.
Well, you know, there's an interesting thought floating out there, guys. That, you know, there's actually two there's two cliques that exist right now, kind of supposedly. I'm saying supposedly among the CFR folks, and that is, you know, the first ones that, you know, just want to do away with the surrender of national sovereignty and you know, forming, you know, a one world government, and the second one is more of you know, international members that are part of the CFR, and also comprising Wall Street bankers and their key agents. And essentially, all they want is they just want one world banking monopoly, and they don't care who it ends up with. That's the thing I find very interesting. They don't care if it ends up being China. They don't care if it ends up being the United States. They're like vultures just circling overhead, waiting to find out who's going to be the one that's going to end up with the control. And then at that point, they say they want a one world currency.
Well, right. So, I mean, look at though, Timmy. I mean, they've looted everything. So even if the Chinese, let's just say the Chinese, for example, are the ones that come away with this one world banking government system, right? And they're the ones with the seat of power. At this point in time, those bankers have bought so much in substantial assets, not paper money, but they've bought up everything to the point where they're going to be all right. It doesn't matter who's there. They're going to be able to play ball, no big deal, because they'll have the resources and the wealth to do it because they've stripped it from everybody. You know, just in the housing market alone, folks, over $4.5 trillion of wealth was lost. I mean, that's a staggering amount of personal wealth. And a lot of people, they have no savings. They have no any money to speak of. Their house is their only thing they've got. And now everybody's flip-flopped upside down. You know, they're upside down. They're foreclosing, everything else. Why? Because the bankers ransacked you. That's why. Because they inflated this thing on purpose, and then they burst the bubble, and you guys and everybody out here has got we got held. We're the ones leaving the bag. You think they are? You think the bankers are? No.
Not one person went to jail. Not one person.
Yep.
No one went to prison.
Absolutely. And why? And here's the thing, right? I've been doing a lot of thinking on this, and maybe next hour we'll get into this because it's a very important thing. We, the people, are the ones that give these elitists, these aristocrats, even our local police, everybody the power. Yet they're treated as slave masters. But it's the people who give them the power. And all we need to do is really get the people to realize that again. And since we give them the power, that means that we're transferring power from us to them. We can take it back. If they're doing something wrong, we should be able to. A presidential election that's going on right now. Wasn't there a news piece during break about the Gingrich and Romney feud? But, you know, they're both members of the CFR.
Yeah, we both took note of that when they were talking about, you know, Gingrich and Romney or Gingrich not conceding to Romney, you know, and you wonder, you know, so very, you know, observant point, Joe. They're both part of the CFR. So is this all part of an orchestrated show? I mean, because the CFR already has, you know, a dog in the show. Why do they have two? You know, which is it?
No, that's a great question. But isn't it interesting how every presidential election, you're kind of forced with, well, do I eat shit or do I eat shit? Boy, you know what I mean? It does, and that's what it is. You're not getting change. You're getting the same crap, just regurgitated. You know,
well, it's funny you should mention presidents, Joe, because we've had a lot of our American presidents who are all part of the CFR, including our good friend, Mr. Barack. How do the English say it? Barack Obama. Mr.
Barack Obama. Yes.
Yeah. How they say that? It's like, where the hell do you?
Is that or is that more like Indian? That almost sounds Indian to me.
No, it's English. This is Barack Obama.
Barack Obama.
Whatever
That's
tickles
right.
your butt. So anyway, he was a CFR boy, and also Dick Cheney. You've got Bill Clinton and Hillary, no doubt. Bush Senior. I don't know if W was ever part of the CFR. I don't know if they wanted him.
I don't even think they let him in, dude. He was just he was just name recognition at that point.
We don't want you, W.
That was just name recognition. They knew, like, all right, Cheney's going to run the show, but Dick Cheney, that ain't cut it. We need somebody with a little bit of name recognition. Oh, look at this, little Georgie boy. Come on, George. Don't worry, you can drink. It's cool. You want to do a line, do a little sniff, no problem. But that's just it. They surround these people with handlers. Oh. And here we have again, somebody with the qualities in 2008 that he was able to Shanghai and bamboozle people.
Well, it wasn't just them, Joe. I mean, it was also like Nixon and Eisenhower. I mean, this went way back, folks, way back.
Isn't it interesting that Eisenhower is the one that also warned us about the military-industrial complex? Yeah. Isn't it interesting? I mean, that when I hear about that kind of stuff, it kind of makes me wonder, is everybody in this thing as like a group ambition, or is this just like a bunch of elitists duking it out with one another, Yeah,
that's a good question. I've asked that, many
like
times.
A thing. Could it be akin to like a Freemasonry ladder, where you have people of more power? But to some at low level, they're just in it to get the name, CFR. Hey, I'm a member of the CFR. I can put it on my resume.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, is it a complete and totally does everybody enter it with ill intention, or is it something akin to the Freemasons where you have high-level Masons with lots of power, and then you have the guys that go there for cheap drinks? You know what I mean? Let me just go to the Mason.
It's funny you should ask that, because they do have two levels, of membership in the Council on Foreign Relations, which is very interesting. You say, why would you have two levels of membership? Well, the two levels of membership are life. That's it. You get to be a life member. And the other one is a very specific. It's they call it term membership, and it's available to people. Now, get this. You've got to be between 30 and 36 years old. That's part of the prerequisite. Then I start to think about, that damn Masonic stuff where they do stuff with numbers and stuff. It's like, because why not 29? Why not 37? It's got to be between 30 and 36. And then you can serve for a period of 5 years and 5 years only. So I'm assuming that's what, Angelina Jolie is, and, some of these the movie star people. But then you've got your Henry Kissingers, your Zbigniew Brzezinskis. They're lifers. These
I want to bring about the New World Order.
Yes. Yes, Captain Ramius.
One bring only.
And you also mentioned, every presidential cabinet has had CFR members. I mean, every one.
Surrounding them.
I think, wasn't it Carter had something like a record, like 34 or 36, like CFR members, I want to say. I'm going to have to look that one up. But it was. Isn't
that interesting, Tim? And Obama, they measure him against Carter as far as like the similarities. And it's funny because, John, in and around that time, you had high inflation, high unemployment. We had an oil problem, not so much a supply issue. Well, it was more of a supply issue then because the oil was cut off. But the same thing where you just saw gas prices go through the roof. And it was right around the same time that you had high concentration of CFR members within the cabinet. Thank you, John. Thank you for your timely input.
I think the internet connection went dead again.
Yeah, chirp. Okay, Tim, to you. Isn't it?
You got to love the mute button.
Well, go ahead, John. Thank you, Mr. Mute.
I'm sorry. We also had hostages in Iran at that point in time, if you may remember.
Yes.
Now we're having problems with Iran again.
That's right. Yeah, that was a huge crisis. You remember that, Tim? The hostage crisis at the embassy?
Oh, sure.
Where were you when that happened, Tim?
Good gosh, I was doing country radio, unfortunately.
Ooh.
And we had a bet at the radio station because, see, I was working at this other radio. I was working at a rock and roll station that got sold and bought by anyway. Ended up doing country, and the bet was on at the radio station is whether I would make it out of the station before the hostages made it out. And you know what? The hostages made it out before I did.
Oh, that's a damn shame. Country? I mean, I could listen to some country, you know what I'm saying, but that's just not my music of choice. I'll listen to it. I like bluegrass more. That's kind of like the metal of
dark moments
country.
in my life. Dark moments.
Maybe it's me, but every time I listen to country music, I just see that little weird-eyed kid sitting on that porch playing banjo in Deliverance. I just don't listen to it. Classic rock and roll. Give me some Stones. Give me some Ozzy. I'm good to go.
No, that's absolutely right, man. I mean, they're just absolutely embedded everywhere, but you see similarities in history. Around the same time, they make a move of some sort, or they do things that reshape world events. And the Obama administration is no different. No different. Even though he made a lot of promises before his campaign about making real change and not putting these people into places of power in cabinet positions. So he goes and flip-flops that and surrounds himself with these CFR members. Yeah. And I want to go over real quick before the break what their mission.
Goldman Sachs, I mean, between the two of them. Holy cow.
Exactly. So, quote, this is their mission from their website. A resource for its members, government officials, business executives, journalists, educators, and students, civic and religious leaders, and other interested citizens in order to help them better understand the world and the foreign policy choices facing the United States and other countries. So what they're saying is, yes, we're a think tank that influences foreign policy, which is great. And then they talk about, they go on to talk about some of the things that they've given reports for and how they've been successful, yada, yada, yada. But the biggest way I could describe them to you is this gigantic think tank that influences foreign policy. And not just that. I mean, they've really expanded what their repertoire is and what they offer. So don't go away, folks, because the biggest thing they offer is New World Order. We'll be right back. Welcome back, folks. This is Freedomlink Radio's Conspiracy Chronicles. I'm Joe Joseph, along with Tim Watts and John King. And we have got some fantastic subject matter tonight. Council on Foreign Relations. I'm going to bring up a site real quick. It's got a funky title or a funky URL, so I'll put it in the chat room for the chatters. But basically, it's a pretty in-depth look into the CFR. And there's a portion of it that I really feel important I want to touch on real quick. And that is this: all aspects of American life are dominated. It says, the members of the CFR dominate almost every aspect of American life. Yet most Americans have never even heard of the Council on Foreign Relations. One reason for this probability is because there are over 170 journalists, correspondents, and communications executives who are members of the CFR and who do not write about the organization Also, it is an express condition of membership that no one is to disclose what goes on in CFR meetings. Mm-hmm. Congressman John R. Rarick had warned, quote, the CFR, dedicated to one world government, financed by a number of the largest tax-exempt foundations, and wielding such power and influence over our lives in the area of finance, business, labor, military, education, and mass communication media, should be familiar to every American concerned with good government and with preserving and defending the U.S. Constitution and our free enterprise system. Yet the nation's right-to-know machinery, the news media, usually so aggressive in exposures to inform our people, remain conspicuously silent when it comes to the CFR, its members, and their activities. Isn't that true, Tim?
It makes so much sense. I mean, that's the way you have to look at it, folks. I mean, it's if you're going to have a coup, a silent coup, I mean, because that's essentially what this is, because most of the country doesn't know. I mean, this is a coup without a gunshot. You're going, at it, like they talk about, Cicero, when he talks about, the traitor within the walls, is the hardest one to defend against. And that's what these people are like, Joe. They're inside, they're everywhere, every facet of U.S. life, in military, in government, in the entertainment industry, and the fact that they're in the entertainment industry is obvious, because in a democracy, I guess, if you're going to fool the people, the only way to fool the people, is to take over their media, and that's what they did. They just took over our media, and people don't get that either.
No, they don't. And Congressman Rarick actually went on and said, the CFR is the establishment. Not only does it have influence and power in key decision-making positions at the highest levels of government to apply pressure from above, but it also finances and uses individuals and groups to bring pressure from below to justify the high-level decisions for converting the U.S. from a sovereign constitutional republic into a servile member of a one-world dictatorship. The CFR now has its main headquarters at the corner of Park Avenue and 68th Street in New York City, in a building given to them by the Rockefeller family in 1929. Isn't that interesting? Its main goal is still to create a one-world government by destroying the freedom and independence of all nations, especially the United States. And David Rockefeller continues to be its chairman of the board. Now, this was written by John Rarick, and he was a congressman. And that all was good until Rockefeller split off from the CFR and formed what, Tim?
The Trilateral Commission. But, I don't totally buy that he split off from that, Joe. I think that there's just a different arm, that he's got out there. Him, the Rothschilds, whatever. But I don't know if I could say that he's ever distanced himself totally from the CFR. But you're right. Well, he did start up the Trilateral Commission.
Well, you know what they say, John. Don't put your eggs in one basket. Isn't that right? That's right. It just rings true that Rockefeller may not have well, everything seems to be like this drama played out before our eyes, and it could just be like this soap opera-esque separation, like, oh, let me look like I had a falling out or whatever, but I really didn't. And instead, not putting your eggs in one basket, you form another one that, almost like having an umbrella company, which would be these endowments. And then underneath the endowments, you just have all these different tentacles of all these different think tanks. Absolutely. But now they can focus on certain things, what I mean, instead of it all coming out of one organization.
Yep, and that would be, CFR, Bilderberg, Trilateral. Those are your three organizations, the biggest ones here, that people know about, that run the show. But the fact that the CFR was in before it all, and most people, again, don't know about it. That's very sad. They've been very good at keeping themselves, out of the limelight while stealing it, essentially. It is amazing that most people have no idea, and then if they do, Joe, if you mention Council on Foreign Relations, they think of the warm, fuzzy, thing that's associated with the name. And, oh, yeah, they're just for, helping out with relations between nations and stuff. Well, yeah, right. I got some swampland in Florida for you.
Absolutely, man. And the other thing is the CFR has many Marxist members. And one of their main Marxists is a guy by the name of Zbigniew Brzezinski.
Oh, yeah.
And he wrote, quote, Marxism is simultaneously a victory of the external, active man over the inner, passive man, and a victory of reason over belief. And then we have Marxism disseminated on the popular level in the form of communism represents a majority advance in man's ability to conceptualize his relationship to his world. I mean, this is coming right from Brzezinski's mouth. Mm-hmm. Marxism supplied the best available insight into contemporary reality. And what Mr. Brzezinski fails to tell his readers is that approximately 100 million human beings have been murdered under Marxism in the form of communism just in the 20th century alone, and it's enslaved 1 billion more, and has been responsible for those who live in communist-dominated countries. And it's really just communism is like brainwashing. I mean, it's like giving everybody a frontal lobotomy. Because where's the drive, the ambition to do better, to better yourself? If everybody's given the same, no matter what. I mean, you just become zombies, don't you, John?
Yes, we do. We have nothing to work for, nothing to look forward to. I mean, why should I go to work and bust my ass when the guy next to me is just going to be lazy and get the same thing that I'm going to make? It creates stagnation in productivity.
No, you're absolutely right. Timmy, your thoughts on all of this? I mean, you're a big fan of Brzezinski, aren't you?
He's one scary dude because he's another one of those bad pennies that just doesn't go away.
Yeah, and he looks like the Crypt Keeper, which makes it even more creepy.
Yeah. He's got, he's on the Council on Foreign Relations. He's part of the Trilateral Commission, and he's part of the Bilderberg Group. I mean, those are the big three, and to be part of the big three, I mean, just to be part of one of them, that's a big deal. And very few people are a part of all three. He is one of those key people that is a part of all three. Another person who's also part of all three of those would be our good friend, Mr. Henry Kissinger.
Hey, yes, Henry Kissinger, Chancellor of William and Mary University, folks. If you want to write him a letter, that's where you find him. We'll be right back, folks. Don't go away. You're listening to Freedomlink Radio's Conspiracy Chronicles on the Orion Talk Radio Network.
Hey, it's Popeye from Federal Objective.
There's a need for a new world order, but it has different characteristics in different parts of the world.
Different characteristics for different parts of the world. That's very interesting, and that's the guy we were talking about just a moment before the break here on Orion Talk Radio Conspiracy Chronicles tonight with Joe Joseph and Tim Watson. It's Mr. Henry Kissinger, and he's talking about different characteristics for, different parts of the world, Joe. Now, I don't get that from a New World Order, which is supposed to suggest uniformity, maybe, maybe something good for everybody, but Henry has now, suggested that it will have different characteristics, different meanings, different intentions for different areas of the world.
Yeah, sure. So third world country, forget it. You will have – it's not like they can just bring a third world country up to like snuff, in the blink of an eye. That's not going to happen. So why give people more than they're used to getting? You know what I mean? If they're not used to getting more, why give them more? You just keep them low down. You know what I mean? But if you say you took a country like the United States and you go from being a first world to a third world country, good Lord, man. Yeah. I mean, you want to talk about complete and utter devastation. Things can go on in these countries like in Africa where they want to go and loot and pillage all the resources over there, they can do that and still treat everybody, hey, look, we're going to take your stuff, and in return, this is what we'll do, and everybody gets a grass hut and 2 coconuts. You know what I mean? Well, that's what they're used to. If anything, they're just cool. Hey, just leave us alone. All we want to do is be left alone. But if you do that in the United States and you say, well, look, I'm taking you out of your Manhattan apartment and you're going to have to go live in that grass hut. Yeah, that's going to be a problem for them. So, I can understand. It's kind of like they don't want to piss people off, but at the same time, they want to institute this agenda and this world order, and there's this fine and delicate balance that they're trying to maintain. But they're failing miserably. To be honest with you guys, the internet really screwed things up for them. Yeah.
Yeah, and they've tried to, really take a hack at that, with SOPA and PIPA, and now what's the new one, Joe, that you had announced the other night? It was the
CISPA.
Yeah, I was gonna has the flaming name. CISPA.
Yes, CISPA. CISPA.
Where do they come up with these? But anyway, yeah, they are taking a hack at the internet now too. You're right. That is the one tool that is. They thought they were going to use against us, but, we've used successfully against them. The information that has flowed out of the internet is just incredible.
That's right. And even if it's flooded with garbage, and it is absolutely flooded with garbage.
And as a matter of fact, let me make that point, because you're absolutely right, because I want to say that, and anybody out there that's been doing research since 9/11, it's stuff that used to come up on the first page of a Google search is just like, boom, like that. And now I can do the same search 10, 12 years later. And it's like, I can't find, what I'm looking for. It takes me 15 pages to find stuff that normally used to come up right away.
No, absolutely right. You know what you got to do, Tim, is and what I've come to find out is that if you get a proxy and you go in through another country, say like Germany or somewhere else, that all of a sudden, wouldn't you know it, but those search terms yield a plethora of information. And what you come to find out is that censorship is alive and well in the United States, that they control the information that goes on. And then people say, well, try this new one like Start Page, or this other one, which is Gibberoo or something. Those two, if you take a look, what are they powered by? They're powered by Google. It's like...
good luck with that.
Okay, well, that's where it's happening. Believe it or not, it didn't take them too long to say, oh, crap, we really made a mistake here. We got to change course. So, they take these companies like Google and Facebook. These are all primarily, first and foremost, CIA front companies. They were probably fronted the money to start that by the CIA.
Sure.
So, and what better way to track everybody than this social media? And what better way to control the flow of information on the internet if we control the search engines?
Yep. And for some people, it just seems so far-fetched, but it's not. When you think about it, it's the most natural, common sense thing that, the government would do. You think when you think about it, you put yourself in their shoes. It's like you've got the money, you've got the capability, you've got all of that, you've got the means. Why not? Because what you're going to glean from that data is just incredible. As someone that used to look at a lot of research and data in the media before, I know how powerful it is, and I know what's people are giving up in Facebook daily. It scares me because they don't understand the profile that can be built on them. The government now knows so many little idiosyncrasies about, and you don't know why. But it's because of this methodology of building a profile with little bits and fragments of information that can actually build a persona, can build an actual 3D you for them to look at and them to understand. And it's all coming out of their little toys, Facebook and Google and all of that, Joe.
How scary is that, John? How absolutely just it's sick, don't you think? Mute boy? Is he muted or is he offline? Let's see.
It's getting to the point where I can't tell anymore. I drop about 5 times between breaks, so I just mute it when I come back in. Sorry. It's very sick. They've done reports on how to implement a one world government and to do this all while appeasing the American people. They don't look at the American people or men and women, human beings, as human beings. We're animals to them, nothing more, and we deserve no rights. The United States government declared war on the American people back in 1938, and the word human being in the law dictionary refers to an animal. So we're nothing more than animals to them that deserve no rights. And when they implement this one world government, Joe, you're not going to have any rights. There will be no morality. There will be no sympathy. There will only be them, and you don't add in anywhere.
And, Alfred Adisk proved that point when he used the Second Amendment the First Amendment, First Amendment freedom of religion stance against the FDA when they were suing him as the fiduciary of this colloidal silver business, and they were fining him because they were telling this company that colloidal silver is a controlled substance and it's improperly labeled. And it was something along the lines of $9 million. But when he was researching the code and the law, what he came to find out is that the government writes its rules and regulations, at least in where he has researched, that it considers humans as animals. And on that stance, he defended himself and said that as my freedom of religion tells me that, I'm created by the Creator, God, and that God gave dominion over the animals. So I'm not an animal. I'm a human. Therefore, this law doesn't apply to me. And they dropped it. Because if it went to trial and people were to find out en masse, and they would have if this thing went to trial, what jury would convict this guy of doing wrong when he's just showing it? The government thinks we're animals. The powers that be think we're animals. And that's why we're treated this way.
Well, look at Kissinger's quote. Remember, when he's talking about, the military and the infantry, they're just dumb animals, dumb pawns to be used, in wars. And, he was serious about that. There was no jest in that. The guy was absolutely dead, serious about it. They consider us animals.
Absolutely
Thanks,
right.
Thanks, Hank.
Absolutely right. Folks, last segment of the show on the way, so don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. You're listening to Freedomlink Radio's Conspiracy Chronicles on the
national is that for the first time in all of human history, mankind is politically awakened. That's a total new reality. Total new reality. It has not been so for most of human history until the last 100 years. And in the course of the last 100 years, the whole world has become politically awakened. And no matter where you go, politics is a matter of social engagement, and most people know what is generally going on in the world, and are consciously aware of global iniquities, inequalities, lack of respect, exploitation. Mankind is now politically awakened and stirring. The combination of the two, a diversified global leadership, politically awakened masses, makes a much more difficult context for any major power, including currently the leading world power, the United States.
This is a big new Brzezinski, ladies and gentlemen, here on Orion Talk Radio, Conspiracy Chronicles with Joe Joseph and Tim Watts. And, oh, by the way, I just want to remind people, don't forget to check out Against the Wall with James Freeland, Tuesday and Thursday mornings, 8 to 10 Eastern, right here on Orion. And Joe, what he was talking about there, is he's trying to paint a picture that, the CFR, in a one world government is going to be a good thing. But, I'm sorry.
It's been a real hoot up to now. Yeah. It's been a real party up to now. So, what do you do? What do you do, Timmy? When they have such a handhold over our lives, it's really up to the citizens to take control back. And it's very simple. You start at the bottom and you work your way up. And that's the only way. That's how this stuff is sparked. That's how it spreads. It starts... we can be like a cancer to them, where it starts as one cell and branches out. So we could do it. But it's going to take a concerted effort on everybody's part to go out and awaken our brothers and sisters to the truth and reality of the world. And believe it or not, guys, I've been finding lately that it's easier to get through to people simply because we're all suffering at this point.
Yeah. And it's sad to say that that's what it takes to get people stirred, until they're suffering, until they're actually feeling it.
But, there are a lot of people out there.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people out there with nothing to lose at this point. There's a lot of people out there, So many more aren't plugged into that NFL game. I mean, there's still quite a few. Don't get me wrong. But there are a lot of people out there that are finding, wow, man, this sucks. I'm having to work 2 and 3 jobs. If they can get a second job, hell, if they can get a first job. Ain't that right, John?
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that aren't able to make ends meet. They're on double emergency unemployment. You have to get, it's been reported recently, Joe, that you have to have a job to get a job, because people are getting entry-level jobs such as working at McDonald's or Burger King or Wendy's, but they apply for something that may be in their field, like a technician of some kind, but they just won't get hired because they've been unemployed for 2 years and didn't maintain employment, so therefore they're lazy. They don't want to be hired. It's hard for them to get hired.
People off the rolls are at an all-time high now, folks. At an all-time high. You're not seeing the unemployment rate go down because more people are going to work. You're seeing the unemployment rate go down because they're coming off the rolls. That's why they just gave up.
Yeah.
It's over. And why? Exactly what John said, Tim. Because they're treated like garbage once they're off the workforce for so too long.
And again, that's one of those fake ways they massage the numbers, because they always massage those numbers because they want to make their administration look the best, and they've done that historically down through the years. So you got to look at, what, the unemployment rolls are right now, and then think about that just overwhelming amount, that sea of humanity that sits out there right now that is already exhausted their unemployment benefits. I mean, unemployment in this country is much higher, folks, and people think it is. What we got? 313 million people in the country right now, and you've got at least a sixth of them. At least a sixth are in destitute poverty. In the world's supposedly, best, what am I looking for? Most well off, best well off, country, that we could have this kind of life here in the United States. It's just, it's staggering and it's shameful.
It is certainly that, Tim. Certainly that. And like I said, these people will stop at nothing to advance their agenda, but they give us clues. They give us clues to what they're going to do. It's weird, John. You talk about that deal. You used to, when you were on the show as a regular, the deal that these people struck in order to get the power that they had. It's a really shady thing. I mean, this organization is really rooted in evil, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. They're all Luciferian. They worship the Dark Lord. They believe that the earth should have been given to Lucifer to rule over, and that Jehovah stole that rule from them. That's why they worship the owl and are all Luciferian, because they believe that the earth was stolen from Lucifer as a gift. They have a deal with a demon, and that deal states that they can get total power over the earth, but there's a catch to it. They have to do, before they do something, they have to actually tell the people that they're going to do it.
And we've seen that here recently with, like I said, some of the last events that we've seen unfold like that is the Lone Gunman pilot episode on Fox.
Yep.
I think it was in June of 2001. Mm-hmm. And then Knowing, depicting the Gulf oil catastrophe almost to a T. I mean, unbelievable how close that was in similarity. So and this is just, it's, I just can't for the life of me get it wrapped around just how incredibly evil this organization really is.
Yeah. And it's this tonight is just a tie-in, to the shows we've had, the weekends before, folks. So check out Conspiracy Chronicles for the last few weeks, because, this all ties together, and it's all the same cabal. It's the same people. And it was a very interesting moment in this nation's history, because, the turn of the century, the early 20s. I mean, that was, it was all downhill for, the Constitution.
You know who showcased that really well was the Reese Commission in the investigation into the endowments in the 1950s. Man, that Reese Commission showed it. It laid it all out for them, for the government, and they did nothing. They did absolutely nothing. As a matter of fact, the Reese Commission was never really finished and seen through to its completion. And it's just a shame.
Those that don't make it through,
Yep, absolutely. So, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that we fight. And, folks, if you go to the Freedomlink Radio, you can watch the interview that G. Edward Griffin did with Norman Dodd, who was the Ken Starr of the 1950s, to the Reese Commission. He was independent counsel. And what he uncovered with the endowments and how they are entrenching themselves into every aspect of our life is incredible. And the endowments are the ones that fund the CFR and think tanks like that. All you got to do is follow the money, and you'll see where it leads. And, they say that money is the root of all evil, and I'm sorry to say it absolutely is. It absolutely is.
Those tentacles are there.
Oh, it'll do amazing things.
Well, you mentioned the Reese Commission, Joe, the fact that there was no culmination to that, but it just kind of ties in with what you were just talking about money, the tentacles of money and what it can do. But the Reese Commission never came to a conclusion. The Nye Commission after World War I, that was, pulled short before it could reach conclusion. McCormick-Dickstein Committee after the fascist coup on FDR just before World War II, that was also cut short. I mean, all of these things that they have to investigate these people that, are kind of pulling the strings behind the scenes of government, they get off scot-free.
Absolutely. John, any last points as we end the show?
Yes, I think when everybody gets up in the morning, one of the first things they should do is thank their CFR masters that they're still alive. One of the ways that these psychopaths do their business is they tell you what they're going to do before they do it. Let's kick back to the early 60s or late 60s with the Planet of the Apes and how they wiped out people through a canine virus. They're able to do chemtrail spraying, it wouldn't take much for them to concoct a virus to spray in the middle of the night.
No, it certainly wouldn't. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Tune in again on Tuesday from 10 p.m. to 12 a.m.